Come around the back of the house and the risks escalate. So what we've got here, we've got clothes on the line. What's the obvious way of dealing with this risk? Get the homeowner to remove them. Yes, the homeowner removes them. You don't go around moving all their clothes off the line. And down here, we've just behind us here, there's a dog, and here are the dog bowls. And we can see here, this dog bowl's got water in it. We absolutely don't want to get chemical in the food or the water bowls, so these need to be removed, and preferably the water taken away, just in case, because then we put fresh water back into it. That way, there's no even chance of it being contaminated. We also look behind us, and we've got the dog here, and we have the dog bed there. So the dog plus the bed should be removed. So again, no chance of the dog bowls or the dog food being contaminated at any stage during our treatment or post-treatment. And you can see the dog here brought a toy. So the dog toys should be removed as well. Yes, removed, taken right away, so that they're not in any risk of getting contaminated. The barbecue here, it's covered. Now, if it wasn't covered, probably okay, but it's certainly covered, so no problem at all. And the washing basket probably should go because we don't want to contaminate that. More dog toys, some buckets, probably get them removed because we don't know what they're going to be used for. And now we come to the big risk here. We've got a ground drain. So what can happen here, if we're treating up into the air, the chemical comes down, it goes down the drain, or we have a spill, it actually goes down the drain. So we need to be very aware of these, either just aware of them, or we actually cover things up. So make sure that nothing goes near it, or we cover it up so that nothing can get into it. We talked about the power board around the front and keeping the spray away from the power outlet. Now this is actually a defined external power point. It's actually water resistant. I don't think you need to be too concerned about this. Certainly don't spray up in under here, but the rest of it should be reasonably okay. Just try not to get chemical on it because people are going to be touching it, but you don't have to be worried too much about you getting electrocuted. It is designed for outside. So we're now at the very back of the property. We can see we've got the big dining expanse here, and just the other side of that mirror or fence are the neighbours. So we need to be very aware of that. We're obviously not going to get them to move the table, and we can't do anything about the neighbours. So this is about being aware and making sure our treatment is appropriate for the location. So no spraying up in the air over here, and making sure we don't cover the table with it because it's an eating surface and we don't want to end up with chemical on the top. We can certainly treat under here and even under the chairs depending on the sort of treatment we're dealing with and what the pest is, but not on here and not over in the neighbour's property. Because we're treating outside and we're treating for webbing spiders, it's not just about the ground and where the chemical's going to end up sometimes, it's about high up because we're going to have chemical dealing up there as well. So we need to think about what's above our heads and where we're going to be treating. So right here, we've certainly got windows which we need to make certain are shut, like we talked about around the front, but we've got gas units, gas water heaters, and we've also got air conditioning units, and we've got some wiring and other sorts of bits going on around the outside here. You can't have them removed. You're not going to go up there and start covering them up. You just need to be aware that they are there and either keep the chemical treatment away from them or be very careful about how you're dealing with those facilities up there. Don't just spray all over the top of them. You may need wands or some other management method in order to treat them, but you need to be aware of them. We're going to be applying chemical for spiders, and one of the high risk areas for spiders is around the sophites and below the guttering. Now, this house doesn't look like it's got an issue regarding catching water, but the water goes into the stormwater system, and so we don't want to get chemical in the stormwater system. If it was catching water for use, we don't want to get water into the water tank either. So when we're treating up into these areas here, we have to be very careful about our application. So we need to manage the risk of getting chemical into the water catchment system. So we don't want to get it on the roof or into that guttering here or anywhere else around the property because it'll end up going down the stormwater or into the water catchment, like the water tank. And most of the products we use can be tasted at very, very low concentration. So don't think it's being negated because it's going into an area that's 5,000, 20,000 litres. It's very tasting. You can taste it if you put too much product in there. And that's beside the point. You don't want any in there at all.
When we're doing our risk assessment, Keith, something that I often come across as an assessor is guys are concerned about applying product up here that may come down and land on the plants. Now, is the products that we're going to use generally going to cause a problem with the plants? And that could be either different types of plants or just ornamental plants as well.
Most of the products we use actually aren't going to have any effect on the plant itself. A lot of the suspension concentrates are just going to sit on the surface. Some of the emulsifiable concentrates could affect the fine foliage plants like some ferns or that sort of thing if they're shade-loving plants and the sun gets on them, it burns them. But the chemical itself won't. Indeed, most of the chemicals are used on plants anyway. So the answer there is most of them no. But you should read the label because the label will tell you if this should be kept away from foliage. It will be on the label. I think more importantly in that is that if the plant is a vegetable or a herb, you don't want to get it on it at all. So these ones are succulents, so they're not herbs, they're not going to be eaten. But if they were basil or sage or mint or something, then you don't want that on the person's produce because you don't know whether they're going to wash it and then suddenly they're eating your particular chemical spray. That's what you don't want.
So generally speaking, when we come across plants, we've either got to identify that is this an ornamental or maybe it's got to be for consumption. Now, my problem is not everybody knows what sage looks like or coriander looks like. So how is your normal pest technician going to identify that this is a consumable item?
I would suspect or guess really that they don't need to. If they're concerned about it, just don't get the chemical near it. And that way, again, on their sheet, aware of plants, didn't treat that in that area. So there's no risk to them at all. So if they're very concerned about it, just don't go there. But if there's some accidental spillage on a plant like this thing here, it's not going to affect the plant. And certainly, I mean, this is a magnolia, so they're not going to eat it either. So I wouldn't be overly concerned if I did get some overspray on it, but if they're really concerned, just don't go near it.
Yep. So the takeaway point there is, if you're not 100% what that plant is, if it's edible or not, presume it is edible.
Yeah.
And eliminate spraying from that area.
Play it safe.
Yep. Good.